Good evening and welcome to Zion's Banner, and it's good to see people already gathering around. I have some exciting news for you and some information along with it, and I'm going to try to directly let you see some clips and some things. The other thing about tonight's program is I'm going to try to interact with actual clips from Rabbi Singer's broadcast. So there'll be a clip and there'll be interaction, and I'm working more on making it more interactive, and so this is going to be, I don't want to say experimental. Let's just say that we're going to be able to do a little bit more back and forth. And so let me give you the big news about the conference coming up. Lindsay asked a question, and I feel I need to get to the Kenosis is Philippians 2, verses 5 and on, where Jesus ends up, or God limits himself in Christ, where Jesus, being in the form of God, considered it not something to be grasped and limited himself. And we'll talk about God's self-limiting in the person of Christ coming to be with us. So that is the term kenosis. We're not going to get real deep into the kenosis here because Rabbi Singer has created a wall of objections. And so we need to deal with the wall and remove bricks kind of one at a time. But it should be really interesting. Let me give you the big news. I'm going to be doing a screen share. There will be no broadcast Thursday because I will be driving to California. And I can't be two places at once to be part of an extraordinary conference. And I have such a deal for you tonight because there is a deal by which, even if you cannot be at this conference, you can get the online materials for 50% less. So let me start sharing what's going on. If you're not a regular tuner into the station, you came at an interesting time in history. So let me share the screen. I'm going to go ahead and share the audio. I'm going to share the tab. This is like a big, huge thing here. And I'm going to go ahead and share now.
The 20th Annual National Apologetics Conference, Our Strong Tower, comes to Southern California, featuring Reverend Anthony Rogers, Dr. Edward Dalcour, Dr. Jay Smith, Dr. Tony Costa, Reverend Samuel Green, and Dr. Jeff Cran. Don't miss this event, 3 days on topics like how to share the gospel with Muslims, defending your faith, and challenging Islam. You'll also hear former Muslims sharing their testimonies. September 10th through the 12th. Learn more at ministryofmuslims.com. That's ministry2 spelled T-O Muslims.com.
All right. And that is what I'm going to be a part of. And I'm excited. I'm going to be standing on the podium with guys like Dr. Eddie Decor and other individuals. And this has been put together with workshops. And I will be addressing the reliability of the scriptures. And so I am really excited about this. Let me give you the news about how you... And a shout out to Chris. Chris, I will be in Vermont in October at Lamoille preaching. So I just want to let Chris know that he can come and see me preach at Lamoille because he did that. So it'll be my turn. And it's the anniversary of the church. And so I'm excited about that too, because I helped plant that church. And so I will be the speaker at their anniversary. And I think it's getting to be like the 15th or 17th anniversary. So I'm excited about that. But I digress. And I want to give you this wonderful deal that is so exciting and so incredible here. So I'm going to show this. And actually what I'm going to do is show it big time. So I'm going to get rid of the scroll here and show. And okay. That's because of me. That's because I did that. Let's say I'm going to save because I don't want the scroll. There we go. If you use my last name with a capital K, Cran, you get 50% off when you sign up. Whether you get the material online or not, you get 50% off simply using my name. I'm excited about this. And so that is a deal for you who are on my station. And you can tell others if they're interested in this particular conference that they can get 50% off. But wait, there is more. and I'm excited about this too. We are working to set it up, since this conference will be making use of StreamYard, to stream the Friday night to my channel. That's right. You will go on my channel, and if all goes well, the Friday night will be streamed free of charge, so that 50% is on everything else. And you can see it live on my channel Friday, barring any weird things in California, because we're going to try to StreamYard it directly to my YouTube station. So there's some incredible stuff. It will be recorded and it will be put on a site. Elizabeth asks about it, but it will be a site where you would have had to register for online or the conference. In other words, there's going to be a period of time where you can't just go online and get this. But if you're registered, you're going to get a link to where this stuff is. And that's if you sign on online or in person. So can you go directly after the conference and get this? No, you can't. Can you get 50% off whether you go online? Online means that you can see it online. You're going to have a link. You're going to have some way of going to the site and being able to see these things, and you're going to be 50% off whether you go online or whether you're personally there. So we got you covered both ways. And by the grace of God, if all of this goes right, you can turn to my YouTube station on Friday night and see the conference streamed to it. So this is a real chance. I am uniting or linking with Ministry to Muslims to do this. And I'm going to need real time to prep, because you don't stand on the stage with a guy like Dr. Eddie Decor and be unprepared. So I've been working on this stuff. And that's why there will be no Thursday broadcast at all next week. Now, I am weighing Wednesday because this is really part of a two-part series, and I don't want to leave you hanging. In fact, if this gets complicated enough, I may even think about a three-part series, because this is really rich stuff. But I intend to see about Wednesday. Wednesday will be tricky because I will be packing. So stay tuned to Facebook. Stay tuned to Patreon. Both of those will have sites. And if I see that I'm behind, we may have to skip a week. But you see, your Wednesday will be Friday that week, because there will still be a program on free of charge on my station live from the conference. So there will be material. It's just a matter of whether I get to do a Wednesday and Friday, or I just get to do the Friday. But Thursday will not happen, because I cannot broadcast and be driving the 7 hours to Anaheim, California, to be ready bright and early and bushy-tailed for the intense Friday schedule that we have planned for this conference. Why am I doing this? I am excited. Ministry to Muslims allows me to teach and do apologetics, and so I am definitely up for that. And the Bible and its legitimacy, Old and New Testament, its accuracy, its reliability, I think is an important issue that is a crossover issue beyond pure Muslim apologetics, but even in the area of Jewish apologetics, and even in the area of dealing with agnostics and atheists who say our Bible is not very trustworthy because it was indeed translated and copied. And so I think this is a crossover issue that needs to be dealt with, and I have been given the freedom to go ahead and do that. So I am excited. Okay, that's the big news. That's the big thing. And so you've got a lot of opportunities next week. You've got special deals that I am able to offer through George Saig and Ministry to Muslims for you. And now we need to try and listen to some Rabbi Singer. But we're going to try to interact with him as we listen to him. So let me do the screen share again. Stop screen share, and then restart our screen share. And I'm going to try to screen share the PowerPoint, but I'm going to screen share the audio too. And so here we go. Okay, this is the beginning here, and I'm going to try to share Rabbi Singer live and doing his thing with clips. This is Singer versus the Kenosis, part 1. Singer contradicts himself and misses the point again. And I want to be nice and I want to be kind, but there's just some damage being done here. The gentleman who calls in, however, knows how to explain the Trinity well. And I am terribly impressed because most Christians cannot explain the Trinity very well at all. So we're going to get clicking and do this. Here's the first part. Now, in this clip, Rabbi Singer is going to kind of sound like he does not believe the Trinity is polytheism. So let's see if we can listen to this.
I believe only in one God. And of course, we agree. All Christians would say they believe in one God. And they would say that because the Torah says so in Deuteronomy 6:4 and some. The Torah says so in Deuteronomy 6:4 and.
Okay, that was Rabbi Singer, and I think he's done with his little thing here. But as you can see, he seems to be stating that Christians are indeed monotheists. If you got what I got from that, it sounds like he's saying that Christians are monotheists because they believe, now get this, the Torah. And I love that. I would sit with him and say, yes, we both believe in one God. But is that what Rabbi Singer always says when he's talking to people?
Right? So the moment a Christian says that I believe in two gods or three gods, so that means that would be a heresy. And no Christian, unless they were Marcionites, but these are outlaws. Believe in two gods or three gods, so that means that would be a heresy.
Okay, so I'm going to try to move on. Now, you heard the same clip again, and I'm sorry about that. But, I really want to be very clear here that...
Liars, forget about that. I believe only in one God.
Let's get past this, okay? Now, what Singer seems to be declaring here, and I'll let you hear it again, is that in talking to this Christian who's a very intelligent, educated Christian who knows how to explain the Trinity, he seems to indicate that the Trinity is not polytheism. There's no Christian that would say he believes in more than one God. Well, but what did Singer say in an earlier broadcast? Well, let's see if we can find out what Singer said in an earlier broadcast by letting this play.
How is it possible for the Jews to be saved when they have rejected their Messiah?
I think what you're asking is, how could the Jews be saved if they rejected
Jesus,
the notion that Jesus is the Messiah?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I've kind of put it out there. The way that the question was actually asked of their Messiah, like it's like their only Messiah. So anyway, but yes, that would be correct.
How could a person defy the words of the prophets of Israel and hope to be saved? That's the real question that should be asked. I say this with love. I want Christians to repent. When the Torah says, "V'yadat hayom," you should know today, you must place it on your heart. Ki Hashem hu helikim. The Almighty, He is God. By Shemayim Imal all earth, mitachas ein od, from heaven above to the earth below, ve'ein od, and there is no one else, nothing else. The question really should be asked is, how could it be that a person believes that there is another deity, another person in the Godhead, worships this association? How could the person have any hope for salvation if you have God as the one you adore and love, but you're getting text messages from somebody else, love messages?
Okay, now let me move on here and get past
How-
this video so that I can go ahead and do this. Now, what I want to do is contrast Singer's earlier statement here that obviously Christians only believe in one God. I mean, that's what we obviously believe because we believe in Torah, and so we honestly believe only in one God. And there's no way that we believe in more than one God. And then in his other clip, he says, look, how could you even hope to have any salvation if you believe in more than one deity? Well, you know, and he uses his famous text messages from somebody else. Okay? Now, here's the problem. Which one does Singer actually believe? Does he believe Christians aren't polytheists? Or does he believe that they are polytheists? In the one to the Christian, he says Christians are monotheists because the Torah tells them to be monotheists. Therefore, Singer seems to indicate that Christians believe in the Torah. Ooh, there's a statement. And that they do not believe in multiple gods or polytheism. Now, that's in the first video. Now, the other video, the second video you saw was an earlier video. And in this video, Singer seems to indicate that the Trinity does represent more than one Trinity. And so according to him, Christians are polytheists. Now, this is a clear contradiction between his videos, and that's why I wanted to show them to you, because he seems to be saying two other things, two opposite things that both can't be equally true. It doesn't seem like you can say Christians believe in Torah, what Torah says about there being only one God. And by the way, they're rank polytheists who believe in more than one deity. It's interesting that he uses the word association because that's exactly what Muslims use, which is really interesting to me. And we're going to talk about why Singer isn't even in connection with Judaism at times, because he doesn't seem to be representing Judaism very well. Now, why would Singer make two videos that seem to contradict each other? One where he's getting almost like angry and saying, receiving email, text messages from someone else. And then another one where he's being so patient and kind and saying, well, you know, I know Christians are really monotheists at heart, and they really don't believe in more than one God, and they're really monotheists. Well, what are some reasons for this? Well, one, possibly because this is a non-Jewish, and I'm pretty sure he's a non-Jewish individual who's a follower of Jesus calling in. He could be telling him what he wants to hear so that the guy will stay on the show and listen to his brilliant explanation of all of this stuff. And so it could be that he wants to draw him in. And so he's kind of falsely patronizing him. And Singer can be patronizing at times. I've seen some videos where he sounds a little patronizing, and he would like this guy to hear his argument. And so he does the thing with creating common ground. Okay, yeah, we're both monotheists. Here's our common ground. Get this. We're both monotheists, but not really. Okay? This is just a ploy, a Trojan horse sort of thing to draw the guy in. The other is that Singer is miraculously changed his mind about the Trinity being polytheism. And the rest of the video that we're going to look at would indicate that this is not a likely thing. I would welcome it. I would really welcome it. You know, when Shmuley Bateak argues this stuff, he does not do what Singer does. Okay. He respectfully disagrees about the nature of God's oneness, and I welcome that. What I don't welcome is the straw man sort of effect of saying that someone's a polytheist, and it could be that Singer has changed his mind, but I don't think so. I don't think the rest of the video is going to allow that. The third is possibility that really occurs to me as I'm listening to this is maybe Singer's willing to say anything to make his case, even misrepresenting his views on monotheism, polytheism. I just want to win the argument, and I don't really care what I have to say to go ahead and win this argument. It's okay for me to be disingenuous, to go ahead and win the day and convince Christians. And notice he always says he wants them to repent. To repent from what? from faith in Jesus. So he's not just targeting Jewish people. He's deliberately allowing Christians to come on the show, ask questions in an attempt to convert them. And so that's a third possibility, and it's one we have to take into account. I think Singer's capable of this. I don't know if he's doing it, but I think he's capable of it. I think it's a possibility that we can't just ignore. Now, one of Singer's arguments is going to go ahead and be conventional language. He's going to kind of say, the problem is the way you Christians use person, because you're using person in a way that makes this confusing and complicated and sort of misleads people. And so you're sort of muddying the waters here. You should use conventional language. And we all know what a person is. And so you shouldn't say more than one person, because a person is an individual. And so if you say person, do we really have to use conventional language all the time when we talk about spiritual things? Well, that's a really good question. So let's hear Singer's argument from his own mouth, because I think that's only fair.
But then words are introduced by Christians, such as, and I want to work this through with you, such as there are persons. Now, in ordinary conversational language, we're using this term person in a way that no one ever used the term person. Like in conventional conversational English, that's not what Christians mean when they say person, that there are three persons. Like, what do you mean? Now, I'm not asking you to answer that question. This is not like a trick question. I'm just expressing what is obvious, is that when Christians use a term three persons, they don't mean three persons like there are three people in the room. They're using a word in a completely unconventional way. And when you use language in an unconventional way that lacks the conventional meaning, there's no way to engage it, because it doesn't mean what it conventionally means. Or hypostatic union. These are terms that you alluded to or referred to. I'm not setting up a straw man. You're using a term that's not conventional. And
Okay, so there we are. Singer says you're using a term that's unconventional. Now, while he doesn't say that we're deliberately muddying the waters, and I want to be honest, what he does kind of infer is that we're doing just that we're using language in a way that deliberately sort of confuses people and doesn't let them know what their doctrine really is, and that whole thing. And we're using fancy language, and we're deliberately kind of making this difficult to understand what we really believe. And so people think we believe one thing, but we sort of believe the other because they can't understand what's going on. And so his argument is based on the fact that you really shouldn't be discussing theological things or spiritual things, because this is a spiritual thing. We're not talking about doing your checkbook here. This is a spiritual thing. We really shouldn't be using language like this. I mean, it's downright confusing. So I thought, well, okay, so let's take Singer's standard of conventional language and let's apply it a little bit here. Okay? Now, this is a picture of, this is a definition of muddying the water, to make something chaotic or difficult to understand. It's an idiom that we use. We use it in debate. My opponent is guilty of muddying the waters. They gave an example. Inviting his ex-wife to our family holidays is one thing, but insisting she come on vacation with us with the kids really muddies the waters and makes things confusing for the kids. And so this really is a term, and it seems to indicate what Singer thinks we're doing here, okay? Now, first of all, it's using the term in a way that nobody's ever used it before. Oh, really? No one's ever used this before. We invented this recently, and we came up with this, but no one's ever used this before. So I went to the online etymological dictionary and looked up the word person. Go figure. And what you'll notice is that this comes from the classical Latin. Now, I don't know that Singer knows that the word person comes from the Latin, okay? It can have the meaning of one's personal being. Yes, it can have that meaning. It can have the meaning of a living body or an external appearance. Okay, as in persona. Now, when I go to the Ren Fair, I put on, okay, true confession time. I become Joffrey the Grey, and I put on my medieval garb, and I have my medieval garb with my tankard attached to my leather belt, and my stuff on me, and I put on my persona of Jeffrey the Grey. And so person comes from the term persona. And if I'm at the Ren Fair and I'm Jeffrey the Grey, I am not a different individual, but I put on a different persona, which is where we get the word person from. Okay? We use the term persona non grata. Okay? A Latin phrase. And so you have to be aware of where words come from. Now, was this ever used by the church this way? Yeah, in the mid-1300s. So this is a way that Christians have talked about this for over 700 years. Okay, so when this guy uses the term person, or Christians use the term person, that's because the church borrowed from the Latin. Okay, I don't want to, to belabor the point. This is not some new thing we invented. This is the use of a separate language in a particular theological way in order to try and convey a truth that is very difficult to convey. But it wouldn't be so difficult to convey, Mr. Cran, because I don't know that he'd ever call me doctor. If you Christians didn't have this weird doctrine of the Trinity that is so contradictory and illogical, well, let's check this out. Should we examine the Bible and speak of it only using 20th century conventional language? I mean, is this our hermeneutic now, that we understand the Bible and we talk about it only in terms of 20th century language when we're discussing spiritual things? Well, let's try it. Let's use Singer's test on the Tanakh. Here's Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Oh, well, there's a verse out of the Torah. Let's use it in a conventional way. So what does one flesh mean? By the way, you have two individuals being considered one, which is kind of a picture of unity and plurality, which is what we're talking about in the Trinity anyway. Well, let's look at the word one flesh here and try to put it into 21st century conventional language. What does one flesh mean? Well, it could mean that the two people become one body, like flesh. Okay, chili con carne means chili with flesh. Okay, with meat. Okay, they become one physical being, the husband and wife, which means upon marriage that me and my wife started becoming or became one transsexual or bisexual individual. Because after all, that's what one flesh would mean. So can I say that Genesis 2:24 by conventional language is saying that when people get married, they become one transsexual or bisexual individual? Because after all, we have to use conventional language when we're talking about these things, right? If I'm preaching about Genesis 2:24, I have to use conventional language, because otherwise I'll confuse people. Okay? Nobody talks about one flesh being one unit. It's echad betzer in Hebrew, which, by the way, notice how much Hebrew he was spouting off. That's not conventional 21st century English that he's using when he recites a verse in Hebrew. And in one of the things, he has no problem. Okay, let's go a little further with this. What's the other possibility? I don't like the one flesh being one individual body. Okay, like me and my wife start sharing the same body, like a Star Trek episode. Maybe it means that we become one individual. Maybe that's what one flesh means. And the two shall become one individual, because a flesh maybe is like a unit of person. Okay. Well, then who ceases to exist? My wife as an individual or I? Because we have to use 20th century language here. Otherwise, we'll be confusing and problematic and all of this stuff, right? So I'm applying his own test. And by the way, this is equal weights and measures. When your individual you are talking to tries to pull an argument on you, you get to apply the standards of his argument back, the standards that he puts on your argument back on his argument. And you get to do that. That's intellectual honesty. Those that live by the standard die by the standard here. And so it looks like if I take his, you can only discuss theological things, because again, we're talking theology here, using conventional language, and you can only interpret the Bible using conventional language. Look where that puts us. Maybe that's not such a smart idea for us to be limited to conventional language when we talk about these things, okay? I mean, maybe that's not such a good plan. It could be that maybe we don't use conventional language because some theological concepts and some of the Bible is not written in 20th century conventional language. And so if it's not written in 20th century conventional language, you know, there's a possibility. But the weird thing is the way Singer presents Judaism. He says things like, well, let's just skip Kabbalah and Talmud and let's just deal with the Tanakh. Well, that's real nice, but that's not Judaism. It's Singerism. Classical Judaism doesn't take that position. Now, Reform Judaism might. Shout out to Built for Speed. Good to have you with us. Yeah, some more liberal forms of Judaism might, but they're departing from classical Jewish thought anyway. And so when I hear him say things like that, you know, I keep thinking to myself, who does he represent? He's a rabbi of what? Who's he representing here? You know, he doesn't seem aware that Judaism teaches that the Torah can't be understood in conventional and straightforward language. It's a key teaching of Judaism from the Middle Ages on that individuals can't understand their Bible that way. In fact, you know, whatever religion Singer's touting, like let's just deal with the Tanakh, that's not rabbinical that's not Judaism. Unless he's telling me that the particular form of Judaism, and there is one that would do this, is called Karaite, and he's telling me he's a Karaite, which he's not. Okay? But if he was a Karaite, he could at least start to make the claim. But that's not normative Judaism. The Karaites are considered aberrant. They're within Judaism, but they were not accepted by the rank and file. In fact, I could say they're Judaism to the extent that belief in Messiah is Judaism virtually. I mean, that's overstating it. But the reality is that normative Judaism did not accept the Karaites. Okay? The same gatekeepers that didn't accept faith in Messiah didn't accept the Karaites as normative Judaism either. And so, yes, there are scattered community of Karaites, but they don't really represent normative Judaism anyway. And so when I hear him talking, I keep thinking to myself, it would seem that Tovia Singer's religion is not Judaism, because it's not what classical Judaism says. And he doesn't come off in terms of Reformed or Reconstructionist Judaism. And being that he wears a yarmulke every time he's on his show, he doesn't even come off as conservative Judaism for the most part. So while he seems to try and come off as Orthodox Judaism, what he's teaching is not what Orthodox Judaism says. So let's look at it. Orthodox Judaism has been influenced by our friend Moses Maimonides. And so this is what he says about conventional language. There's also a reason why the Torah speaks in the language of men. Don't be fooled by that. It means it's accommodated or dumbed down. Okay? It's not saying it speaks in normative Hebrew. As we explained, for it is the object of the Torah to serve as a guide for instruction for the young and of women. Sorry, girls, Maimonides didn't necessarily have a high view of the intellect of women. Having known, that's a faulty view, but, and notice this, of the common people, as all of them are incapable of comprehending the true sense of the words. In other words, the Torah is designed not to speak in conventional language. They couldn't get it. Tradition is considered sufficient to convey all the truths which were to be established. In other words, it's the Torah plus tradition. The Torah is not understandable by mere conventional language. They won't grasp all the truths because they're the common people. Okay? They're the Am Haaretz, the common people. That term was used. And so Moses Maimonides says, yeah, it's dumbed down because you really can't understand the spiritual truths of the Torah through conventional language. That is the whole basis for having a Talmud. So if the Torah spoke in conventional language, you wouldn't need unconventional language to explain it. But if the Torah speaks in unconventional language, why is a rabbi telling me that I shouldn't be using unconventional language when I'm explaining it? Okay? Let's go further. I love this. This is out of Michael Brown. The Torah, along with the rest of the... Now, this is Michael Brown parroting an argument from one of Singer's fellow anti-missionaries. So he's taken this argument, and he's got one of these anti-missionaries, which is like what Singer is, okay? And he's quoting one of his Singer's Confederates, okay? The Torah, along with the rest of the Hebrew Bible, is unintelligible. Okay, conventional language here, unintelligible without rabbinical tradition. In other words, the Torah can't be understood in conventional language. The rabbis have to interpret the Torah for you. From circumcision to Sabbath observance, from the vowels of the Masoretic text to Messiah, you can only understand the scriptures with the help of our traditions. In other words, the Torah doesn't speak and can't be understood in conventional language. So this whole conventional language thing looks like a red herring to me. It doesn't look at all what Judaism teaches. Okay? In fact, it goes on to say, when Hashem, that's the name for God, gave the commandments to the Jewish people, he did this so the nation of Israel should live and not die. That's interesting, physically. Okay? The Torah was given to them in a way that it could be fulfilled without having to go to heaven to learn it, and those who received the Torah clearly knew what was required of them. There's no doubt that Hashem did not tell them a little and leave out a little so we should stumble. Okay? However, see, you're real good. Now, that sounds like conventional language, right? However, when we look at the commandments of Torah, we have a problem. We don't know what God wants. That's Hashem wants. The written law is impossible to comprehend. So much for conventional language. Not because of the difficulty of the language, but because of the lack of explanation as to how to do it. So it doesn't speak in conventional language, and it lacks the ability for average people to understand what God even wants. Have a nice day. Conventional language is not good enough. It's not able to do it. The religion that Singer seems to project is a religion that's distinctly different than Judaism. If it claims conventional language is necessary for discussions related to spiritual things, since Judaism itself says the Bible cannot be comprehended in mere conventional language, not what God really intended it to say. So Singer seems disingenuous. On one hand, he says, oh, let's just deal with the Tanakh. But he represents Judaism that does not go by just the Tanakh. Because if we were to deal with just the Tanakh, we wouldn't have a problem. Okay? But Judaism doesn't do that. How can Singer demand Christians stick only to conventional language when Judaism teaches the Bible is not understood in conventional language? Logically, we should be allowed to use non-conventional language to convey concepts stated according to Judaism in non-conventional language. In other words, if the deeper meaning of this is not understood through conventional language, then why can't we use non-conventional language to express deeper spiritual truth? It seems like a double standard here that's being played on us. Now, the other thing, and I didn't get the clip for this, is Singer says, well, now, wait a minute. The Trinity is such a fantastic claim. It is such a huge claim that there is no way on earth that you should not have to give incredible evidence, okay? The Trinitarians are guilty of the fallacy of special pleading, that we shouldn't have to have extraordinary evidence for the Trinity, even though the Trinity is an extraordinary claim. You should have excessive evidence. Well, now what's interesting about me is what Singer's claiming. So let's deal with it. This is, again, you say to somebody, okay, the evidence clearly proves this. And they say, well, not really. Let me, you need more evidence. And you just keep needing more evidence. And you keep needing more evidence. And you keep needing more evidence. Okay. Or this is an exception. Normally, this would absolutely prove this or not prove this. But this is an exception. And so what he's saying is Christians are kind of moving the goalpost. They're offering an exceptional claim without exceptional evidence. Well, what got me was the fantastic claim that Rabbi Singer's making. If we go to Daniel 7, 13 and 14, I watched in the night sky, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds, came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near to him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed. So this is Daniel. The scene is in heaven. And in heaven, this individual called one like the Son of Man is brought on the clouds face to face with God, where God gives him his glory and total dominion, his total dominion. He hands over his total dominion over all the earth and gives him an everlasting kingdom. That's Daniel, 7, 13, and 14. Okay? So let's look at this word dominion. The interesting thing about this Hebrew word dominion is it's usually used of God. It's used of God earlier in Daniel. Let's see what this dominion is. Speaking of God, I thought it good to declare the wonders, signs, and wonders that the Most High has worked for me. This is Nebuchadnezzar talking. How great are his signs and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion, same word, is from generation to generation. In other words, the everlasting dominion belongs to God. Now, this is equally good with Muslims. You believe Daniel was a prophet? Here's what Daniel says. Explain this to me. Now, let's see what Singer's claim is. Let's assume that the Son of Man is not God. Since he's called one like the Son of Man, let's assume he's a human being, which is what Singer has to contend. Because if this individual is not God and he's one like the Son of Man, then he has to be a mere human being. So if I understand Daniel 13 and 14, channel 7, 13 and 14 correctly, what Singer is claiming, is that God handed over all of his sovereignty over the earth to a mere human being who is brought to him on the clouds. And gives him all of his glory. See, that's what Singer's saying. Now, Singer says, look, you Christians are making an extraordinary claim. you should have tons of evidence for your claim. You should have evidence on top of evidence on top of evidence. But you see, if Singer's right about this being a mere human being in Daniel 7, 13, and 14, then Singer is making an extraordinary claim that the verse doesn't support, or that nothing else supports, that God turns over all of his sovereignty and over the earth and all of his glory and his everlasting kingdom to some guy who's brought before God on a cloud. And even if he's Messiah, that's still a huge claim to make. Now, this could be used with Muslims. How is Jesus not God if he's brought before God and given God's glory? Does God share his glory with another? Seriously. And so Singer seems to be making an extraordinary claim here, because this individual is not anything but a human being. And he's receiving all of God's glory and sovereignty over the earth in Daniel 7, 13 and 14, using the same word for sovereignty that Nebuchadnezzar uses for God's rule over the whole earth only 3 chapters earlier. Okay? Who's making the extraordinary claim here? Who's making the extraordinary claim, us or Singer? Maybe Singer needs to reevaluate what an extraordinary claim is. Maybe he doesn't understand what an actual extraordinary claim is. Because from what I can see, Singer's making the greater claim. Singer's making the bigger claim, according to Daniel 7, 13, and 14. And by the way, you can do that with an individual. Hey, look, let me take your position for a second, and let's look at the claim that you are making. You are saying I'm making an extraordinary claim by the fact that there's an invisible God who made everything, but you're making an extraordinary claim that all the features of creation, including morality, okay, consciousness, can all be explained through naturalistic mechanisms. So who's making the more extraordinary claim? And in my mind, Singer's making an extraordinary claim, and he's not offering a ton of evidence to support it. Okay. Now, next week, I'm bringing back my virtual helpers. I've missed having them. My wife said to me, "You're not using your virtual helpers anymore." Yeah, I really miss them with their cups of coffee. And so I've not used them for a while, and I really enjoyed using them. And so I'm going to be bringing them back because they've had enough of a vacation for the summer. And I think it's time that they ended up being here. What are we going to do? Now, it says next week that is subject to some things, okay? Being that I have to leave on Thursday and pack, that may be subject to whether I can put it all together. But I'm going to really try for you to get it all together. What will we look at this next broadcast? We're going to look at whether it's possible to limit God, to temporarily limit himself as far as knowledge. And how does God limiting himself in the theophanies point to the Trinity? And I think that's really key. When talking about the Trinity, use the theophanies. Theophanies are, as you're going to see next week, I think they're going to tell us something very important related to God's ability to limit himself temporarily. And that's really the crux of the issue with the kenosis. So what we're going to see in the next clips with Rabbi Singer is he's going to attack the kenosis directly, the same way that Muslims would attack the kenosis. It's possible that maybe Singer is more of a Muslim than he is an actual Jew in his theology. Or he's just borrowing from Maimonides, who was deeply influenced by Islam. But the reality is, the real question is, can God limit himself temporarily? Slam is asking, does it mean I won't be here tomorrow? Yes, there will be no broadcast tomorrow. I'm sorry about that, guys. I need to do this in order to get certain other things done. And we also finished Matthew. By the way, this is your opportunity as community. Go into Patreon or go on my Facebook. Let me know. Drop me a note through Messenger. Let me know in a text what you would like, what your ideas are after when we start up Thursday again. See, we finished Matthew, so we need to start something new on Thursday. And so I would be very willing to take some suggestions about where to go with Thursday night. And so because we finished Matthew and I need to retool for Thursday again and figure out where we're going, and because of the conference falling at the exact same time, there won't be a program tomorrow. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to miss you. But I need to inhale and figure out where Thursday's going. But you have a voice in this. This is what's exciting. So you can go to Facebook and look up Zion's Banner, and you should find me. You can put your suggestions in. You can text me. You can email me. Okay, you can email me at Zion's Banner. Throw the ideas out there at gmail.com. I really welcome those suggestions. You can go to Facebook. I can bring this up here real quick. I'm going to do a different tab here and pull the URL for Facebook at Zion's Banner. And you can weigh in on what you think you'd like to see next. So you can weigh in there. And that's also where you can get more information about what's going on. So those are ways of communicating with me. But there will be no program tomorrow. And I'm going to remove that. We don't need that. You're seeing my Zion's Banner page. But I needed to just put that up real quick. Tovia Singer asked the question, did Jesus die for unintentional or unintentional? Well, that's a very interesting question, and that might be worth a program. Built for Speed, if you can find me the URL where that question comes in, just so that I have a little bit of context, because I don't know why Singer would care. I think he's asking about sins of the high hand. And if that's what he's asking at, I'd like to know it. And then we could go ahead and deal with it. His argument is probably there were no sacrifices for sins of the high hand. Therefore, God can forgive. And if he can forgive sins of the high hand without a sacrifice, then he doesn't need sacrifices. And I think that's where he'll go. If that's the case, I'd like to look at what he says and then take it apart from there. So a URL, that would be a good program. Just to let you know, Thursday nights are usually more of a Bible study, going through a book. It doesn't have to be that way, but I want to do some exegetical teaching on the channel. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't do that topic. I might have a lot of fun doing a Wednesday night on that. Also, I've had contact with Rebecca, who has asked me some really good questions that a rabbi put to her that she didn't have answers for. And it might also be good material. So that could be a Thursday or a Wednesday. Now, just to let people know yet again, and let me put the banner up there. Let me remove this and put me back up there. I want to put the banner up there to let you know. There you go. Next Friday night, by the grace of God, the conference I will be speaking at will be streaming to my YouTube station free of charge. And you get 50% off. Okay? You can rewrite the comment. It'd just be really useful, Built for Speed, if you have the URL. Simply, you don't have to. I could try looking it up and finding it. But I just want the context too. So either way, but it's just really helpful to hear what Singer says and then to try and take a clip or two. Other thing, when I do videos like this, because it had all the Singer clips, it was too large for you to download the PowerPoint. Microsoft is giving me problems with larger files. What I will do on Patreon is to make the file available in a PDF format. if it has too many clips through Google Drive or through, but both of those are giving me trouble with larger videos. And so if the video is super, super large, what I'll have to do, my cat's coming over here to be friendly. She misses me. She's very friendly in the evenings and the mornings. I will go ahead and put that up as a PowerPoint. So that's just to let you guys know that. Well, this has been good. I'm going to get set here. Well, I'm going to get ready to end here. It was great having all of you here. And I'm just seeing if there are any new comments here. Lindsay says, yes, Lindsay, go right ahead. And Brother Brian, thank you. You're going to do what's called an assist in hockey. And if he doesn't find it, you'll put it up there. That's great. Lindsay, that would be fine. I'll look over those questions. And we'll go from there. But I absolutely love, Lindsay does very good questions. You all do good questions, but Lindsay has sent me some really good ones. Be praying for the conference. We got to get Anthony Rogers from where he lives. We got to get me to Anaheim, California. We got to get David Wood from wherever David Wood is. I don't know. El Fadi will be coming from this area also, I believe. And we're even going to stream Australia. Shout out to Elizabeth. Samuel Green from Australia will be with us for this conference. So you will have a fellow Aussie actually streaming into this conference. He will be long distance. We could not fly him in, but he will be a part of the conference online. And so that's even there. So, well, I think it's Erev Tov time. And whatever I do, I'm going to start inviting, I think, my visual helpers back with their cups of coffee because they're a lot of fun. If you guys, if anyone has a strong objection, really, really hates Naomi or Leah or something, just let me know. All right. Well, thank you guys. You are wonderful as always. I am not putting the scrolling thing thanking folks. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep my word, but I want to revamp that. There are a few things that don't look quite right, and I think there's a name or two that got either left out or needs to be changed. So I want to revamp that for you. So that's not going to be up tonight because I want to make it better. And I don't want any AKAs and using people's names in ways that they don't want them used. So that's going to take some video editing. And so I will be working on that. Brother Brian says, I like coffee. I do, but I can't drink it at night. But see, my virtual assistants, they can drink coffee at 6 o'clock. And they don't get insomnia. So, and let's see. And I had Chris on, and I told him I'd be in Vermont, so I hope to see him there in October. And I think that's it. We need to continue to pray for Australia. Be praying, too, about my fall trips. I want to be able to get to Vermont. It really means a lot to speak at the anniversary of this church I helped plant, but COVID could interfere with that, so I could use your prayers, too. Well, it's time for me to sign off. It's time for me to move the camera so I can sign off. Wow, I didn't have a hand there. There we go. And it's time for me to say Erev Tov. Thank you so much for being with me. It is always a joy to have you. God bless. And thanks for those prayer hands. God bless and Erev Tov.